Well, good evening. Welcome to Grover Hill Zion United Methodist Church. Thursday evening devotions from the kitchen table, where we talk about many different things, eclectic really. If there's something you'd like to hear, well, feel free to drop me a note, and that's okay. Tonight I want to talk to you about this emptiness that's inside of us that only God can fill. And you know, you've heard me say that before, but I think it's worth repeating. We just were talking about that yesterday with some people, and they were excited. So I thought I'd just share this with you a little bit. This study was taken some time ago, a few years back, but it's still worth repeating because now we know. The study says that the brain of every human heart, from believers to atheists, has revealed or has been revealed to contain at least 3 God spots in it, all linked to religious beliefs and thoughts. Think about that. All linked to religious beliefs and thoughts. A team of United States researchers have obtained strong evidence that religiosity is managed by the same parts of the brain that are used every day to interpret other people's moods and intentions and analyze experiences. And moreover, it continues to say that the spots exist in the human brains of ordinary people as well, not just those whose extraordinary religious experiences have been triggered by brain injury or neurological conditions like epilepsy and so forth. And scientists and philosophers and theologians have long argued about whether religious belief is a biological or a sociological phenomenon. Britain's controversial evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, and of course he's not with us anymore, I don't believe, but he contends that religion is essentially a cultural virus spread from brain to brain. Think about that. I heard him, by the way, say that something had to be created right in the very beginning. But anyway, that's another matter. Somehow he went down that trail. Anyway, others argue that it arises from the structure of the brain itself. And this new study, this report continues, this by researchers at the U.S. National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, obtained by non-invasive brain scans of 26 Americans, have gone far into resolving this debate. It says Jordan Grafman and his colleagues wrote in the U.S. journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Science that the evolution of the brain networks that handle religious thoughts was likely driven by their primary roles in social thinking, language, and logical reasoning. But according to the University of NSW, evolutionary biologist Robert Brooks, the study shows that religion taps into the existing parts of the brain that evolved to handle complex social interactions. So those God spots are in the brain for a purpose, to keep us oriented toward God. Solomon writes in the 3rd chapter, verse 11 of Ecclesiastes, that he has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, and yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to the end. St. Augustine writes that you have made us for yourself, God, And our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you. And again, C.S. Lewis writes, if I find in myself a desire which no experience in the world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. Isn't that true? We were made for another world. Of course, we were made to live here, but we're made for another world beyond this world. There is a sin-gouged hole in the heart of every person. You know, we're told that, theologians have told us that for centuries now. A deep void that screams to be filled. We attempt to fill that void with everything, don't we? From adrenaline rushes, those kinds of activities that do that, to relationships, to careers. But the problem with these attempts is that none of them will ultimately satisfy that longing to fill that emptiness inside of us. You may find a certain amount of enjoyment and contentment in those things for a while, but in the end, they will leave you empty and they will leave you longing for something more. That's why these folks that go after these thrills, they need more and more and more. They're never satisfied. Think about King Solomon. Solomon had hundreds of wives, and it's hard to wrap our minds around just how rich he was. Oh, he was extremely rich in his day. He would be extremely rich in ours as well. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 14 tells us that Solomon received 666 talents of gold each year as a base income. In today's market, that's about $1.5 billion. Just as a base, and who knows what other kind of income he had. That's a whale of a lot of money, isn't it? No matter what century you live in, no matter how many thousands of years ago you lived. Basically, Solomon was so rich he could buy anything that he wanted. And he took full advantage of all of his money just to do just that very thing. He wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. Isn't that the dream of most people today? Unlimited resources, power and respect, excitement and pleasure. We all crave those things, don't we? If I could just win the lottery, I'd be all set. And we secretly dream. Solomon had it all. But listen to what he eventually confessed. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil that I had expended in doing them, and behold, all was vanity, and a striving after the wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 11. All vanity and striving after the wind, nothing to be gained. Those are some pretty heavy words, aren't they? But it gets even worse than that. Solomon continued in verse 17. So I hated life. Wow. So the guy who had everything, women, adventure, power, unlimited resources for his creative desires, beautiful retreats to relieve the stress, ended up hating his life. He had everything we all dream about having, and he hated his life. Solomon didn't say that he was lacking in some area. He had it all. He hated life. That's because nothing in this life can fill that void, fill that emptiness that's inside us. Nothing. What was true for Solomon is true for us as well. When we try to make things in this life fill the void, we sense we end up hating those things which we poured all of our hopes into, because they ultimately fall short of satisfying us. Again, they may satisfy us for a moment, but that's it. They're just temporary. Many men hop from one adventure to another, seeking their next fix or their next thrill. Some even hop from one relationship to another, but the problem is a never-ending cycle, because only God can fill that void inside of us. Only God. Another point that's important, when we attempt to fill the void within us with things other than God, those things become idols. All of those things, or those other things, aren't necessarily wrong in and of themselves. We're free to enjoy them in their proper place. But anything in our lives that get the devotion that God alone deserves becomes an idol. Even the wonderful people in our lives can become idols in a way. Only in an ongoing relationship with God will we find the ultimate peace, intimacy, forgiveness, and joy our hearts long for. Only God can give us that peace. Only God can give us those feelings. Blaise Pascal, noted scientist and theologian, recognized that hundreds of years ago when he wrote, "There's a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man which cannot be filled by anything created, but only by God, the Creator, made known to us through Jesus." Well, I hope that's helpful to you. Have a great and blessed week. You know, I heard two reports today. The one place the groundhog saw his shadow, and another place the groundhog didn't see his shadow. But even then, if you look on the calendar, springtime's still 6 weeks away. Have a great, blessed week.